Hi, I'm Douglas Horn, and this is Telos Talks week. What is it? It's 5 or 6? It might even be 7. We'll
No,
find
we're
out. So
six. We're six.
I have we're 6. I thought it was 6. That's exciting. Okay, so and today we are talking with some of the many women working on it, but this is not a woman in blockchain thing. We're not talking about that. We're just talking about the projects that they're actually working on, because when we talk to men in blockchain, we don't talk about being men and what it's like to be men on a project. We just talk about the project. So I have with me Beth Farnham. Hey, Beth.
Hey, Douglas and everybody out there.
And Ava Masucci.
Hi.
And we've got CJ Anders.
Hello, everyone.
And so I'm going to just kind of go person by person and get a quick interview, have everybody introduce themselves real quick, and then we'll talk about some of the things that we're all working on. So Beth, you want to start out?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, this is Beth. This is my first time joining this call with everybody. I am a member of GoodBlock. We are one of the Genesis orgs that have been putting together all of the Telos work over the last few months. And I work with a variety of the work groups. So I'm a little bit of everything going on here.
That's great. That's great.
It's a catch-all.
Okay.
The buck stops here, catch-all.
The buck does stop here. And we also have Ava. And Ava, a lot of people probably know from social media. I guess people know Beth from social media too, but Ava, you're on there all the time, and also from the white paper.
Mm-hmm. So I'm Ava, and I'm also with GoodBlock. And my main role as a contributor has been in the community engagement field, as well as like on social media, like we just mentioned. But I've also been working with the data analytics and kind of taking a deep dive into that section as well.
Yeah, so every time we need to figure out what the numbers are, like why we should pick a certain number, or how something affects it, or how to make inverse voting work the best, we go to Ava and you crunch the numbers, right?
Yep.
Is that in Python?
Yeah.
Is that you use?
Yeah, I'm mostly using Python.
That's cool. Have you used TelosPy yet that Peter created?
Yeah, I was checking that out with Peter.
What do you think?
Yeah, it's really cool. It's really cool.
Yeah, it is. It's cool. You know better than I.
Mm-hmm.
You know the math better, but I'm pretty impressed with it too. Hey, CJ, why don't you give us your little intro, please?
Hi. So can you hear me okay? Because I heard that
Yes.
I'm very quiet, so I'm sorry about that. What do you want to know?
Tell us about yourself and what your role and things like that.
So I'm not with GoodBlock. I'm actually just a community member. I shouldn't say just a community member. Community members are important. But I got involved with Telos through my good friend Katie Roman, and got really excited about it. I was involved with EOS from the beginning of when it was before it launched, and was excited about that. And then things changed, and I got I got introduced to Telos, and so now I have found myself as helping with the marketing work group, and I'm co-chairing that, and just trying to kind of create a strategy for helping the public become informed about Telos, and kind of wrangling all the cool cats that want to help with that in the Telos world. So that's what I do.
Yeah, that reminds me, something you just said reminds me of one of a moment I really liked early on in Telos, which was think back, if you will, to the early days when people were like, scam, you guys are the worst, it's a money grab and all that stuff. And it's just, and you had come in pretty early, like maybe in the first few days, I think.
Yeah,
and
I was there like maybe the first day that like the Telos Telegram.
Yeah, and so you came in, and then you were talking to people in Telegram and talking the ideas, and then pretty soon you were just so there that we said, I mean, I don't know if we've been clear enough about this, but anyone is welcome to join. This is a totally open group. Would you consider joining? And then a couple days later, like a day or two later, you're like, sure, and you jumped in and you did a great job. And then I remember, like, it was like just 2 or 3 days later, and somebody was coming in and just spewing all this stuff. And you said basically, look, I came in from this very group, and now I'm one of the lead people doing marketing, and I'm doing all this, and I think actually that person turned around. Like, so many people like kind of came around. I think I know. I'm not going to say who it is now, because I now remember the rest of the story and who it is. But it's somebody who's actually a very good advocate for us.
Yes. Yes, I think I got a hold of the white paper before it was public, and I read it once, and then I joined the Telegram group, and then I read it again, and basically my first job was just kind of doing what Ava does, and answering questions and kind of helping clear up confusion about what we are and what we do. So I felt really weird about it, because I was like, nobody knows who I am, and I'm just
well, CJ, I can say, at its simplest core, Telos is about community, and it meant a lot to the people that had really kind of created the initial steps for this, when people like you and Katie and Ava came on board so quickly and so well informed, and were just willing to kind of jump in and help speak on behalf of what the Telos organization was trying to do. So it was definitely, and that you've continued to be able to stay engaged, and our community outreach has been really, really beneficial because of early people like you that just hopped right on in there and joined the conversation. So thank you.
Yeah, we're glad you're here. And a lot of people who are in the broader community won't have seen a lot of your more current work, because a lot of it is, so we're definitely looking at the future, and we're saying, it's great for now. It's always going to be important to have that one-on-one, hands-on community integration with people and be there for them. But it's also important to work on another front, where we're going and interacting with businesses in ways that they are used to, and getting them to know about Telos and engage with us as a strong project that happens to be a crypto project. So for people who don't know, CJ worked, is in a leadership position on putting together a really cool presentation deck that paints Telos in a really nice light. Looks super glossy. I think actually everybody here did some work on that, but you were the spearhead on that one. And that looks great, by the way.
No, it's definitely a group effort, and I will say that before one of the reasons why it was really important to me to be a part of this was the same reasons why Telos was conceived in the first place, was that I was really involved as a community member on EA, and one of the things that Katie and I did early on, before when the EOS launched, we were looking around for information, and we realized that there was no clearinghouse of information for people. And so we just, out of our own kind of pockets, we just figured out and created a website, and we actually have taken it down, that it was The Wire, and because we feel like we just didn't have time to maintain it anymore. But we did create that, and created a lot of controversy around compliance with block producers, which that whole mantle's been picked up by other people now. But we definitely we're concerned about some major issues, which is why we're still healing.
Yeah, and that was a great. I never realized at first that was just the two of you. It looked like it was a really well put together. I guess it's the whole, on the internet, no one knows you're a dog kind of thing.
Right.
Well, things like that are important. I mean, especially from a Telos perspective, like, EOS had a few years to kind of get their message out there and engage with people and inform people. And, we're trying to do this in a very short period of time. So trying to keep that information in one consolidated place is challenging. So it's great that you were able to do that for the EOS community, and have been able to support the Telos community too.
Yeah, we've learned so much about what the community needs and what people need, and I'm so excited for Telos because of what we're going to be able to come forward with when we launch and present to the world is something that's really packaged up pretty awesome.
I think you're right. I think you're right. Let's talk. So let's talk a little bit. I want to talk to you, Beth, because now you've been nominated for the Telos Foundation board.
I have.
And congratulations.
Thank you.
And I'd like to hear, maybe about the board, but also like what's the view? So the Telos Foundation was originally conceived as something that would be that promotional arm, right? So many great coins and projects have that promotional arm that's always out there, interacting with the users, and also trying to get more dApps on there and get more businesses and get more stores to accept the coin or whatever, right? It may be its use. So Telos Foundation is mainly, I know that people think about RAM, but that's mainly what they do is those grants and things. So how is that going to work day to day after this board, after this launch group kind of dissipates? I mean, we're going to launch and then everyone's going to go away, but a lot of the roles don't go away, right?
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that's been really kind of interesting to watch evolve over the last few months, as so many people have come on board to the contributors group, is kind of the consistent commitment from people from kind of all different levels of contribution. So from developers to marketers to people that are just token holders that are excited about the opportunity, especially a lot of kind of dApp organizations, a lot of the wallets and exchanges we're talking to. Everybody's just really excited. So what we're seeing a lot is that although yes, once would be very near to happen, launch and activation, the people that are strictly just BPs will run off and just get to be awesome BPs in that space. But there's going to be a strong handful of people that stay behind that kind of run the day-to-day, if you will, with an international group spread all over the world, kind of operations of keeping the foundation moving along. So that will be things that will be like generating approval for the grants for different proposals that are brought forward, monitoring and working with our quote unquote RAM czars to kind of control that thing. So to answer the question about the way I see it working pretty darn smoothly, because we already have a very, I don't want to say concentrated because it's a big group and we're spread around, but a very committed group of people that will stay as equally engaged as they have been on a day-to-day basis, just getting us this far. We'll just kind of shift that focus into specific tasks on the board. So we have a board of directors that is currently being nominated, and we're a small staff that is kind of evolving as well. Does that answer your question?
Well, I think it yes, Beth. I think that question very well. I mean, there's things like, well, like with Ava, I mean, how much time a day do you think you spend? Probably more than you're being paid for, talking with people on
mostly Telegram is where a lot of our users or the community members are concentrated. And yeah, I spend a great deal of time answering questions and making sure that the Telos kind of launch group feels very inclusive, and that anyone is welcome to join and contribute their unique skill set.
That's a good way to put it.
And that also there are no like stupid questions, ask anything. And,
there's a couple.
But we don't shame people for asking those
right,
questions.
you are. Right, we all came to crypto at one point.
Yes, yeah.
And at one point we did, and if we were faced with the questions today that we posed then, we wouldn't want to be shamed with that either.
No.
But so when I think about like with your role, like that can't just go away, right? We launch and then it's like, okay, great. Well, like, crickets and tumbleweeds in the Telegram.
No, there's always going to be, I think my favorite part of Telos is the community, and it's going to only grow from here. Yeah. So especially when I think we've already proven our value, but we're going to continue to prove our value as more or less early adopters in the crypto space.
Right. And there's going to be a lot of things. There's always going to be new things, right? We're just hearing about changes that are going to have to come because with keys and things like that, that are going to have to come because of decisions that other people have made that we need to live within. And so, for example, it's just come to our attention that for the users, for the best of the users and then all the dApps and for launching when we need to launch, we may have to not use the TLOS prefix on our keys. Now that's not a big deal, really, that we did that initially, not for vanity, but because we wanted people to have the ability to know what keys were to what chain.
And that makes it a lot more user friendly. There is some sort of prefix in there.
Absolutely.
Because you don't want to be sending your Ethereum tokens to your EOS address
Right, absolutely. But now there's been some emerging action where we may end up having to go back to EOS because it'll be a lot more smooth for everybody. And if that happens, imagine we've been telling people Telos, they're all going to start with Telos. There's going to, once you change your message, it's super important that we have people out there day to day, because we can't assume that people are just going to get the message when we deliver it, right? Mm-hmm. So that's why we always need, it's always going to be something. We're always going to need somebody out there, people out there, and then all that's also going to have in so many different languages too.
Yeah, this is Beth again. Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great example of where the board of directors for the Telos Foundation will have to be way more engaged than kind of the traditional, you can't see me, but I'm doing air quotes, corporate board, where they just roll in once every 4 weeks and somebody puts a dossier in front of them and they get a bunch of information and then smile yes and no and go their happy way. Things are always going to be happening in this space. The board's going to have to be really involved on a day-to-day basis to be able to get ahead of things like that. There's always going to be people that are joining Telos for the first time. So information that might not be new to somebody from a month ago is going to be new to somebody now. So being able to, acknowledge that there's news that needs to get out there, information that needs to be shared, and making sure that we have a system in place to share it with people like Ava and like CJ.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to be, if you're on the board, it's definitely going to be a working board,
it's definitely a working board,
not a cigar chomping board. Very few. I mean, if you can work and chomp at the same time, I suppose.
I'm not sure I'm gung-ho for the concept of a cigar chomping board. I think with what I've seen from the list of nominations so far, none of them are the cigar chomping type. They're more of the roll up your sleeves, dig in, and let's just kind of take care of this business that we care about.
Totally, but we should also be really clear. It's an advisory, informational role as far as actual on-chain governance. There's no on-chain governance. What you're doing is going to be working with still all the stuff you're doing now, right? Like you're working on translations working group, and you're as a chair, I think, or you're working on the exchange outreach as a chair. And probably like 3 or 4 more.
3 or 4 and 4 or 5 or 6 other working groups.
What is another one that would continue, right? Because those are both going to continue. We don't want to go, we don't have anybody. Sorry, we don't really have anybody to talk exchanges. Sorry, Binance, you can't come on because we don't have an interface person for you.
I would say for me personally, all 4 that I have a leadership role in will definitely continue, but there are definitely work groups that would be on that. I mean, we have an exchange outreach work group. That's a great team that is developing relationships with the different exchanges. So as those continue to come on board Telos in the very near future and months down the line, those people will need to maintain those relationships. So that work group isn't going to go away, that I'm a part of. Translations will always need to maintain, because there'll always be new information that wants to be or needs to be shared globally. We have an external communications work group that works with the marketing team. Somebody's always going to have to represent that.
So I think all 3 of you.
Actually, by default, I think everybody is.
And so those things have to continue. We can't just drop those. No. We can't drop social media. We can't drop development, right? I mean, some of those things though also, so there's the worker proposal system, right? So some of those things can also be done through worker proposals. One of the things I think is interesting about the Telos Foundation, so it gives grants, but the worker proposals also give grants. But there's a little bit of a push and pull, right? So a worker proposal grant is, they have a fund that comes from 1.5% inflation, and anyone can submit anything, right? So it's out of the box. Now you can submit standard things like, we're going to do 3 months of communications work, and we're going to do 3 months of development, upkeep, just right. So that kind of thing could happen, but it's not usually a great way for somebody to go, what we really need is this. We really need a brand new portal for this kind of, for making entering a worker proposal system really easy.
Yep.
Right. Because when we launch, you may have to still use the Telos command line to do it. You're still able to do it. We're delivering our promise, but we ideally would like to have a much easier, graphical portal to do that. So that could be something where if somebody doesn't come up, if we identify in the Telos Foundation that, this really needs to happen, somebody doesn't have to come up with it and set their price and figure it out. We could actually put out a bounty. We could say, hey, there's like, 8,000 Telos in it for somebody to deliver, this nice new voting system or whatever that would be. You would, I imagine, figure out a right price, set it, and then people can sort of bid for it or whatever. And then you can award it provisionally to somebody, and then they can get their money when they've done it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of the existing systems will kind of officially become on chain, but some of them won't automatically be on chain. Some of them will need to be discussed, and they'll need to be discussed by leaders in the space, that the board of directors, and hopefully me, if I get voted in there, will take up those discussions. So, the chain the chain to chain has its own kind of language. We have a human to human language. So we'll talk about the value of them, we'll talk about the importance to the community, and then we'll talk about just the fiscal reality of it. And those things will be taken into consideration, and whether we can approve things or not, or not just approve, but also improve where we may have moved forward with one thing and feedback might be that it's not working. We need something more fluid. So it's putting human faces on something that can support the technology. Yeah,
exactly. So the worker proposal is actually powerful because it's essentially unlimited, right? And it can well up ideas from the community, and in a month they can be voted on. The Telos Foundation has less money to work with, but it can say, hey, we see this need and this need, and so we're going to put our endowment behind it, and it could fund emergency things. It's also funding a lot of the bootstrap. It was initially conceived as bootstrap, like the arbitration is going to need paid money to do the initial trainings and things like that.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that maybe a lot of people are aware of with boards. I mean, I've worked with a variety of boards and a variety of different kind of org structures for the last. So I know for 20 some odd years now. I think a lot of people don't recognize that the board also has a huge financial responsibility. So a lot of it is that looking at the reality of the space that we have to kind of, create or reallocate tokens towards something that needs to be fixed or adjusted. So I feel like the amounts proposed right now are pretty responsible. And it's really nice to know that they will be a smart group of 12 people, as well as an executive director and the RAM director when relevant, that can also be a part of those decisions, because there is a lot of fiscal responsibility.
Right, there is. Well, there's a lot of responsibility for helping to guide the price of RAM. So it's not, and the approach there is always to set a published guidance price that would be like the natural price, because you can never fight the natural price, right? That's actually a good news thing we did this week is Jan Smith.
Oh, yes, Jan.
Yeah, we just the other day, we very quickly, it was a very quick vote. We voted to, I think unanimously to confirm him as the interim RAM director. So then there'll be, but then you'll later on a new RAM director, or maybe it'll be Jan and he'll be brought in. It's hard to imagine that somebody is doing. Oh, well, thanks for your 2 weeks of service, but we're going with this guy,
Absolutely. And, the goal is to have the board in place to support the Telos Foundation as quick as possible after launch. So the public will see a lot more information about that going out shortly. In fact, I believe that the website with the board nominations was just released within the last day or two. If anybody wants to take a look, it's telosfoundation.io/foundation.
Yep.
But yeah, that's
PowerPix is probably scrolling up to right now.
our nomination
Yeah.
to date, but yeah, that's kind of an important part of it, is just being able to hit the ground running, establish in this first period of time, how that organization is kind of going to shake down, because we're really supporting the whole ecosystem. We're not just supporting the Telos Foundation, we're also supporting the block producers and the network as a whole.
The DApp developers.
The exchanges, and everybody that we have a relationship with or want to. So it's not just patting on the back for the Telos Foundation. It's really supporting the whole ecosystem of Telos, and then all of our sister chains and
groups like
community as well.
We want to be really engaged in things like EOSIO education effort.
Absolutely.
That's a good one. I think that everyone wins there if EOS and Telos and Warbly and whoever else wants to get in, underwrite efforts to get a lot of documentation and tutorials out there, because those will be deployed pretty much equally across any of the chains.
And the board also has a responsibility to be kind of ambassadors for the Telos Foundation and ambassadors for the space.
There is that. I wonder, what if there in the world that was great but never went to conferences?
Well, they might get more work.
Could that even happen? That's the kind of a tree falling in the forest and no one's there to hear it. Question? Yeah. I don't know. Conferences are. Let's talk about that. Right? Let's talk about the real, actual use of conferences for 1 second. Or not.
I like conferences.
Personally, I like conferences because it's kind of a chance to meet and ask the experts, and some folks learn a lot better that way through dialogue and through conversation. So I think that's one of the key kind of differentiators to conferences, because you don't necessarily get to meet some of the leaders in the space every day and just in everyday life.
Yeah. How about you, CJ? Have you been to conferences?
I'm an introvert. They're great. But yeah, I think that it can be really great. I think it can be really useful for the same reasons that Ava said. I don't really have a lot to add to it because I'm not my
Sometimes
brand.
I think that the good ones are good, and the not so good, looking to burn up your $300 ticket, and you're,
I have a personal philosophy about conferences that I feel like, especially in this space, it's really easy to kind of feel like you're pigeonholed into one kind of, oh, I'm a developer, or oh, I'm a marketer, or that. I think it's really great for people to go to a conference and don't just follow the track that they're most comfortable with, but to often, at least, once a day or twice a day if possible, if it's a good use of their time, to pick a track and go to a panel or something that's a little bit different than what their comfort zone is. And look at the people that are involved in that and try to connect on that. Because then you have an opportunity to learn something new. And that's one thing I think is a great takeaway from conferences, is not just some great FaceTime or some inspiration from leaderships, but an opportunity to be exposed to a piece of our community that isn't your normal comfort zone and to learn something new. That's my personal try to get quote unquote track, everyone.
Well said.
Yeah, that's a fantastic approach. So we're getting close to launch. Crazy. This is 1 week. So 1 week from this morning, we will have our second vote.
Yeah.
I don't know. You guys want to take any? CJ? What's your percentage on a 17th? No wagering.
No, I'm not wagering.
No, I'm telling our audience, no wagering.
Oh.
No gang signs.
It's like a pool. I know you guys are all in the same room over there. Let's see. I'm gonna go with the experts and say we're somewhere around maybe 85%. This is so wrong. I'm just copying whatever somebody said earlier today. Yeah, I think that we're really, really close, and I think we're getting there as far as all of getting everything checked off the list. I'm excited. And
okay, 85%, and that's for the 17th. Is that right?
Yeah, and I think it will. I think that's.
I like that number. Ava, you have any thoughts? Spotlight's on you. It's a radio show.
I I'm not sure. I think we're making some really good headway and improvements. So.
Okay, no number. You could just agree with her, or
I agree.
here. Tell you what, if we were waging, would you take the over or under on CJ's number?
Over.
You think we're over 85%, or we're more than 85% likely to?
Yeah.
Oh, all right, more than 85. 80.
Yeah.
$1 more. Okay.
Wow. I would say based on how hard everybody working, I would like to say that we are past 85%.
Well, based on how hard everyone's working, we would have done it 3 weeks ago.
I don't know. We've only been doing this a few months as it is. I would like to say we're further. I think the reality, because I like to be a bit of a realist, is that it's tech, stuff happens. So there always needs to be a little wiggle room, even when you're plowing full steam ahead. So I'm going to take the under and say 81%. That's my
Interesting.
my Plinko answer.
Okay. I'm going to say I think you might have heard, CJ, you might have heard me before. I was saying earlier that I think it's 85% chance to launch on the 17th and 95% chance to have launched by the 19th, right? So I think the 17th rolls around, we're either going to vote for it, which is the most likely thing I think is going to happen by a lot, or we're going to need 1 or 2 days.
I do really like the checklist policy, that we're really matching the checklist and kind of sticking close to that, even,
Oh, yeah.
I think that's great. I think that the concept of more of a countdown adds kind of a necessary anxiety and is a little unrealistic. So I really like the idea that there's kind of a visual guide that the public can kind of watch. It doesn't really micro all of the work behind those individual tasks.
Yeah.
But it's a really nice way to see all the work that goes into it and where we're at and what still needs to happen. So that decision got made somewhere along the line, and I think that was a great decision.
Thank you.
I could throw out another one.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think
despite the joke here, everything's pretty much done on consensus. So I'll give Douglas credit for that one.
Yeah. No, the nice thing about that is everyone knows anything that is done wrong was my fault, and anything that was done right was the group.
I'll also get behind that concept.
Yeah, that's pretty true. So what's interesting though is you start thinking. So we are having all these discussions in almost every group now, right? It's nitty gritty. Mm-hmm. Right? Like in the beginning of these things, you go, oh, it's these big things we're going to do. And now it's like, well, what gets that exchange on? Or what should we do that? Like, and then it's all just minutia. The closer you get, the more minutia you have to deal with.
Sure. And things start flipping, which is really funny because
yeah,
on a very, not necessarily small, but on what I've noticed in kind of the external communications and the marketing PR group is that there's this big push right now in the next week or so, because we have a handful of different press releases about all sorts of things we're really excited to announce that all need to go out in a short period of time. Yeah. Where in the beginning, we only had like 1 or 2 press releases, and now all of a sudden it's like press release party.
Right.
Because there's a lot of news coming down the line the next week or so. So that task has kind of flipped on itself.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I remember times when we would have something and like, well, let's save that for tomorrow because we already had something today and we don't know if we'll have anything tomorrow. And now it's like
now it's like there's so much news happening. We're just tripping over ourselves to get information out as fast as possible.
Let's just put 5 things together and get it out the door.
Yeah, I know our Medium channel.
Speaking of press releases, I have some writing I need to do.
Guys, yeah. So. Speaking of press releases,
are you going to vamoose then?
No, I will stick it out for the rest.
All right, can you stick it out for 7 more minutes?
I was just trying to be funny and fun.
You fooled me.
No, I really do have work I need to do.
No, I know. We all do.
I'm so busy.
This is fun. This is, and what's also fun is nobody here is trying to really pitch for. Normally at the end, and we're not there yet. I let everyone pitch for their BPs, but I guess I'll let you pitch for Good Block at the end. You'll give us the reason why people should vote for Good Block. And CJ, you are not affiliated with the BP, right?
I'm not. I thought about sending up a note with some of my friends, but we decided not to do that, and because we're poor.
but you're planning to stay in the. I mean, so I hope you're planning to stay. You've done so much, and I hope you're planning to stay involved and either like I'd be really interested actually. So like you are planning to stay involved in a big way in Telos, right? After launch.
Definitely. I have some plans I'm not quite ready to talk about yet.
No, that's cool.
But I have some ideas and some plans for kind of what I want to do. But I'll just say that I'm interested in learning some new things, and I'm considering learning some coding and but turning that into some kind of an educational thing that I can perhaps inspire. And I'm not here to talk about women, but perhaps inspire some kind of STEM program. So that's sort of where I'm kind of what I'm leaning towards is like making the world a better place in my own way. And so that's kind of I definitely want to do oh, so that's where I'm leaning, but I'm going to be a part of the community for sure.
Oh, I hope so.
And I'm looking forward to just being back on Telegram and
But so those would be projects then that you either submitting worker proposals for or submitting or responding to calls from the Telos Foundation to to fund your work, right?
Definitely that would be considered once I get all my ducks lined up and have a plan. I don't have much of a plan right now. I have an idea and
She's got her hands full with press releases.
Yeah, you got a lot of
I got a lot of stuff on my plate right now.
And by the way, I wasn't saying that we couldn't talk about being we couldn't talk about being women.
No, I know.
I'm just saying that was.
But that's not why I'm here. That's not why I'm here.
Like Dennis wants to talk about being a woman.
I'll talk about anything.
You're asking me to pitch for Good Block. I don't know if I can
Oh,
pitch
well,
for Good Block.
Beth, every week she says, keep it to 45 minutes because after that, nobody cares. And she's right every week. And every week I've not done it, but I have gotten a little shorter each week. So this will be the week, I think. And the trick is to have Beth sitting here beside me.
As the resident taskmaster, there's a pretty good chance we'll end up time.
We do have a lot to do.
I told you the buck stops here.
Yeah, we do have a lot to do. Yeah. But we have 5 minutes left.
Oh, great.
Woohoo. Yeah, I think that's fantastic, CJ. I mean, I look forward to when we can talk about it more. And I mean, that's the thing. There's a lot of people working here who aren't. People started out thinking that Telos was all the contributors were just going to be BPs, largely because the biggest contributors with EOS were all BPs. But I kind of like the fact there's a lot of people involved, maybe a third or something like that or more who just aren't BPs and they're still really involved in Telos and they really want to bring us into the world.
Yeah, I really hope that's because we've made a space for them. We've kind of opened up our doors and I keep wanting to use cliches like no job too big or too small. That's not the case here. Like everybody was welcome, and I think that we've tried really hard as an organization to kind of keep a big open door to let people get involved. Where you're right, I think with EOS it really was BPs, people that had the most immediate to gain from it, and less of the blockchain community. And I think we've tried to really focus on blockchain community as a whole.
Yeah, and I definitely feel like that when I felt very like welcomed and supported, which is really cool because right away I think when I started talking on the Telegram channel and I was speaking with some authority. I had read the white paper twice and I'm pretty detail oriented, and I wouldn't say something without making sure that I knew what I was talking about. And it was really cool when I got pushback from people that I was almost immediately kind of reinforced by different people in the community, block producers, and of course you guys and Ava. And it was a very nice kind of inclusive thing that made me really want to continue to be involved.
Yeah.
And you know what? I want to be the person, because I'm not with Good Block, but I would love to be the person right now to plug for Good Block, because I've had the opportunity to work pretty closely with a bunch of people that are in, and I actually got to go visit them in was that in July or August? It was August, and I will say what a great block producer. And if you are looking for somebody to vote for and you don't know who they are, I will plug for them all day long. I think they're amazing, and they're not paying me to say this.
And who is that you're talking about again, Jay?
Good Block.
Oh,
Good
we like
Block.
them too. Thank you. We like them too. So we have, sorry, I realize that there's like people stacking up questions here, and that we can let people, and thank you for that, CJ. I really appreciate that. Let's open it up and see if anybody wants to ask any questions, and we won't, if there's questions, we're not going to cut it off at 45 minutes. So.
No questions so far, but we'd love to answer any.
I just got asked if we were going to be answering questions. So does anyone have any questions?
Yes, this is Michael Pear. I'm here with Trenton Bullock, and we're block producers on Telos. We're CSX community. And
Okay.
one of the questions that I have is this. I know a lot of people are using the Scatter desktop signing wallet utility. So just wanted to know when the testnet, when the mainnet actually launches, will we be able to use Scatter for our Telos accounts, or will we have to use the Gray Mass wallet?
Great question, and that is, you're probably thinking of what we were alluding to about having to use changing the keys from a prefix of Telos to prefix of EOS. This is an emerging thing right now, and all along we had been saying that we were going to change it to use the TLOS prefix to make it really clear for people. But a couple of things have happened. Scatter came out, supported open chain or multi-chain, and everything was working in version 8.9. Now they're coming out with some changes that are excellent, really exciting changes. But they have not brought in the multi-chain. So what we're faced with is, they don't know, they can't say when they're going to, whereas we're looking at launching in a week. And so it's probably, if they can't say when they're going to do it, they're probably not going to do it in a week. So we're looking at a situation where we could either, stick to our happy little TLOS thing that we've been telling people about and makes them feel good and important and everything, but means that a whole group of people out there can't use Scatter, or we could change it to EOS key prefix, and everyone can use Scatter. Everyone has an extra tool they could use, and they can use all the great new features of Scatter. That's exactly what we were just talking about prior to this. And we think that it's more important that the community be able to use Scatter, the tool they want, if that's the tool they want, than that we should be, Telos. So we're looking at probably changing the prefix of the key to allow that. Was that your question, Mike?
Absolutely, it was. Thank you.
Yeah, so we're looking at whatever the best solution, but that is we will always opt for what's best for the users, because it's your network.
Going along with that, then in the future, if people make new accounts on Telos versus making new accounts over on the main EOS chain, it will always carry the keys then as EOS as the prefix?
If we do that, then yes. So the reality here is, short order, we just don't know quite how short order. Block One has been very clear, as clear as Block One ever is about upcoming software, that they will be coming out with a whole new key format. It's gonna start pub underscore K1. That's or R1, whatever the algorithm, the key generation algorithm is, and then the number itself. So we'll no longer say E. And so we've actually been looking at this for a few weeks and thinking that if that came out in time, we would just adopt the new one, because they've been very clear that they're not that the only legacy one that they would ever support would be EOS. So there's a lot, and I think that's likely. I think that communication is likely why Scatter is taking the position they are. Why allow, there be other types of keys, like, with a Telos or a Warbly start or anything like that, when ultimately that's not going to, in a week or two, that's not going to happen. They're not going to be valid anyway. So they've said that in the future, only EOS is going to be the legacy key that they'll support, and everything else needs to be this new format. The interesting timing for Telos specifically is it looks like the new keys are going to come out after the time that we're looking to launch, and so the best solution, particularly for the users, also for some of the exchanges and dApps that are working on coming on board, is just to take a step back, not do a Telos anymore, and on the prefix, and just use EOS. That does mean, though, it's a very cool thing there is, if you are on Scatter and you're still using your Genesis account from the EOS snapshot, then you don't have to do anything to get on Telos, is my understanding. You'll just point at the Telos chain when it launches, and you won't have to do a darn thing, because your keys will already be in there on your identity, and you'll be running your account, is my understanding. So it actually makes things significantly easier for users, which is a plus.
Yeah, that's good to hear. But for those new people that, let's say, they don't have Scatter and they go with the Squirrel wallet based on Gray Mask, if they set up a new Telos account right now in the testnet, will that account be carried over to the launch?
No, testnet, and throughout the land of testnet accounts are never carried over to main accounts.
Okay.
Right, because and think about it for this reason. If you did, and you could like, hit the faucet and get, millions of testnet, things, those just wouldn't be carried over. It's testnet is just for testing out, getting used to it. We won't carry those over.
Okay, so at launch, then everyone needs to just go in and create new accounts on the mainnet.
Exactly right. So if you had one that was already in EOS, that'll be there for you to, and it'll have all your Telos tokens in it. We're not changing the name of the Telos tokens. We were only talking about changing the prefix of the public key. So but people can use. We will have either, almost certainly right at launch. If not, then hours later, we will have some kind of ways plural, for people to get in there and create new accounts, and most likely those will be the free accounts that the Telos Foundation has been promising. Okay. There's a little bit of a catch-22 there. Until the chain launches, we can't actually spin up the Telos Foundation for voting and things like that. So we may have to just do, like, not do our DAC style voting for the first couple of votes, just to kind of get some of these things going speed wise, so that we can put money in for things like getting arbitration off the ground and bootstrapping the free accounts generation and things like that. So there'll be, everything starts off rough. I've never seen it born, but it's not pretty. But it turns out okay most of the time.
Okay, great. Another question is concerning the account recovery. Do we have any statistics on how many of those have been recovered?
That's a great question. I would like to know that question too. I mean, have you been seeing those? Do we know? Yeah. If we don't know, it's okay to say, but
on, like, how many accounts?
How many key account news roughly have come in?
I would say a little bit over 50.
Oh, that's not very many yet.
Yeah.
I'm surprised. So one thing that happened recently, I'm excited about, is that Modi, the head of ECAF, I've been talking to him for a little while, and he has now agreed to tell all the people that have said to ECAF that they that have come with lost and compromised keys, that for them to they are going to send out an email. Obviously, they can't give us the emails, and people, they wouldn't share that information, and that they're not expected to. But they are going to send out an email to all those people that they have on file, telling them, giving them the link to the key change and so they know about Telos in the process. So I don't know if that's happened yet. I would guess that when that happens, we will know, because we'll get a real surge of activity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So my guess is that hasn't happened. And is a moderator on one of the key recovery sites on Telegram, has also reached out to EMAC, the Chinese equivalent, and to ask for them to do the same thing. So I think we'll probably get a lot of people, and of course those are up in Chinese. I'm not sure if we're going to add any other languages, but those we will add them as we can.
Okay.
But yeah, we're doing everything we can. I too am a little surprised it's 50, but sometimes people need to hear things 3 or 4 times, and that's why every day we're out there in the channels, hitting this. And every time I'm on an interview show, it's one of the things I'm sure we hit, because I want people to get their accounts back.
Yeah, considering that number is as low as it is. So like for us, I'm the social media manager for CSX Community. We're and what I do primarily is market to the Steam, BitShares, and Graphene chains, that entire community. So I know a lot of those guys are old, I guess, migrants from the early days, and so I would think a lot of them would have EOS in their possession. So I'm not sure if many of them have, excuse me, if many of them have actually lost their keys or not. So I'll appeal back to that community.
Yeah, would you give them a shout out? That's an important thing. Here's the thing. Like I said this on our last vote. I said right up front, even if everything were green, I would not, in good conscience, be able to vote for activating the chain at that time, because we barely had a week for people to start interacting with us. When the 17th rolls around, we'll have had almost a month. We'll have led less time for some languages, but I feel like we're getting to the point where we have put enough effort out there for people to hopefully know about this. Doesn't mean we're doing less. It means that if we keep on doing every day like we are right now, hopefully by the 17th, it'll feel legitimate that we can vote to launch on that issue.
Okay, last question. In looking at the architecture levels of Telos, we know that for the block producers, there are several different levels there. And my DevOps guy, Trenton, he's actually on the line. And so we were trying to determine, how do we certify at certain levels based upon the different nodes and pieces that we have put in for our block producer?
That's a great question. So those are different levels. Those are meant to be descriptive, not prescriptive. They are meant to give, that is a way that's supposed to give a shorthand for block producers to communicate clearly with their people who might be voting for them, what services they're offering, right? Are you offering, are you just running a BP, or do you have the security of being behind a full node? Mainly it comes down to, are you offering a full API node to the network, so that dApps and wallets and whatnot have a place to sign on and get access? Those are the types of things. So in the beginning, we're probably, unless we see a problem where we feel people are being misleading about that, I don't know that there will be any certification. I think at some point, of course, we will migrate our certifying people's, what level they're actually claiming to be. And there's some great plugins coming up for that, like Heartbyte. We've got Pulse that's being done by Dimitri C over at Kalios. We talked about a couple episodes back. That's looking really cool. All those things are going to be actually make it pretty easy to visualize who's doing what on the network.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, Doug, this is Trenton. Can you hear me?
Yeah, hey, Trenton. And then I think this is going to be the last call, because now we're back up to 50.
Yeah, it is going to be a quick question.
Yeah.
So Okay, so I am the DevOps guy. I work with Mike Pierre here, and so I spend most of my time, just making sure that we're ready for launch. Make sure we got our nodes up, our full node. We're gonna have a full node, a block producer node. Um, but I guess the question I have is there any other way, or is there any other things that we're expected to do to contribute, like
Yeah, so we
like
want to
like
get. Oh, you mean like technically, or like do you have to give to charity or something like that?
Oh no. So I guess like working together and collaborating on the different communities and
Sure.
things that you have going on.
Absolutely. Well, you're welcome. We want you in there, and if you like, if you want to, so on Telos, and especially right now, anyone can just be a block producer. You don't have to join the. There are those who have registered as block producers who don't want to be working with the launch group, the contributors group, and what they give up is the chance to have a vote in where we are, and a chance to do a lot of work, and a chance to earn some amount of Telos as a reward. But it doesn't mean that you don't have to do that in order to be a block producer at all. Anyone who meets the minimum requirements, which are pretty achievable, and agrees to the reg producer contract, can be a block producer. So now you can, but at the same time, even though we're close to launch, people can join at any time. Almost every day, people have joined in this project. And if you guys wanted to join and get on, we have stuff you could do. There is going to be a staging net. Right now, we've almost gone through several days of what we're calling the staging net, which is really just testing launch procedures. And that's going to keep going. So if you guys wanted to get on, join up and get on and be testing out the launch procedures with us. We've done I think 5 different launches. We don't talk about them. We're just because they haven't all done well. We've learned something from each one. But we're actually testing out different amounts of RAM. We're testing it with 8. With 4 is a non-starter, even though I said 4. But there's 8, 12, or 16 gigs of RAM to start off, and there's pros and cons at different places. I would guess probably 12 is the sweet spot for us, where it's still quite low, leaves us a huge amount of room to grow over the 64 that they started with on the EOS mainnet, but also keeps things at a good level for starting out the chain. Those are things you can participate in those decisions as part of the group. You learn a lot about the ins and outs of running a chain by participating in these stage nets. And at some point, as you see, if you've read the minimum block producer requirements, at about phase 2, those become requirement. We always said that you had to be part of the stage nets. We decided stage 1, it's not going to be a requirement yet, but soon it will be. So that would give you some practice.
Okay, so I think right now we have participated in each stage so far, unless there's some stages that there's a select group they're doing. But I think
no, that's of the test net, but there's coming up. The stage net
gotcha.
is where we, and it talks about this in the white paper. It's a test. It's the private. It's what's called the private test net, and that is where we stage software 24 hours or more before it's actually new software is released onto the system, so that we don't. EOS did not have one of those, and when they released their set RAM rate feature, it behaved in a surprising way that wouldn't have happened if they'd had a staging net like we're going to have. So what's happening right now is 6 block producers, and then in a day or 2, we're probably going to start up we're probably actually going to move to a stage 3 in actually 2 or 3 days, so we can do a full practice dress rehearsal of starting up the network a few times, or at least once.
All right.
Now that we've got this.
Can you send us a link to that? Can you send us a link to that, because we would definitely I would like to participate in that if possible.
Yeah, that'll definitely be in. That will definitely be. I'm gonna say instead, please look in the Telegram testnet, the Telegram channel, Telos testnet at Telos testnet. That's where all that will be. It will be publicly available. It'll probably be a pinned message when it's coming up.
Thanks.
You bet. Okay, well, I think this has been a great question. Thank you, guys, for those great questions. And I want to thanks CJ. It's great talking to you. And I guess you got to get back to that writing.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Thanks, CJ.
And thanks, Ava.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you, Beth. And Beth, I guess you still want to do your good block.
Good block. I'm focused on Team Telos right now, and
that's true.
By default, Team Good Block.
Yeah. Well, I mean, CJ did the pitch for us.
They're not exclusive.
I'm not gonna. You can't do better. You can't do better than have somebody pitch for you. Thank you, CJ. Thanks, everybody. This has been great.
Have a good one, guys.
So here's what's crazy. Next week when we do this, we may have voted to launch. That will be an episode to tune in for.
Doug, do you actually want to mention what time that is?
Same time. It's I think that's 2300 UTC, 4 p.m. West Coast on Wednesday.
No, for the go no go.
Oh, the go no go vote is going to be at 9 a.m. Wednesday on the 17th, which is 1600 UTC.
So that's 9 a.m. Eastern or 9 a.m.
Western, 9 a.m. Pacific Coast time.
12 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah, noon Eastern. Yep.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. We out.